if you want to create images that link up to these sort of plates or these sort of asset library setups, then within Unreal Engine, we can set up cameras and views in different ways to try to reach that. So let's say hypothetically that this is the elements of my asset library that I want to create an image of. There's a few different ways that we could do this. We could either make a view that is sort of looking head on, where we can see them all floating like this. Or we can try and create something of an axonometric view or isometric view from this angle. And we're going to start by doing that. And to do that, we need to create another kind of camera. The Cine camera that we created before. Just going to have a look at one of those things. They are really created for mimicking how a real camera works. There's another kind of camera. If we go into cinematics, no, actually not in cinematics in this case. We can go into perspective and in create camera. We have this Cine camera actor, but we also have a normal camera actor. If we click on one of those, it gets created where, from the point of view that we were looking, you can see that it looks slightly different. This is the kind of camera that is used for gaming, basically like to follow a player or something like this, and has slightly more settings for how it's set up. So the first thing that we can do, I'm just going to change the name of this camera, call it ISO. Now the first thing that we can do is we can change the settings in the camera parameter here from perspective to orthographic or parallel. So this is basically an isometric view now. And underneath the settings here we can change the ortho width. So this is basically like how far zoomed out it is. I'm just going to pilot the camera so we can see that a bit more clearly. Yeah, so it's just about how much we are seeing. Maybe we can pick something like this. Here we can change the aspect ratio. So we can do something like this, or kind of plate size. Let's see that this is maybe what we want. And then we also have the other kinds of camera settings, but under post-processing. So this is where we have things like exposure or other settings. We're going to leave all of that as it is today. We can actually see the camera here. So remember, when we export the image, we need to click G for game mode to make sure that that camera doesn't show up in our image. So if these are my assets, I might probably want to just arrange them a little bit so that they, let's say we make an arrangement, I don't know, like this. Maybe this one should be a bit bigger. Again, this is an asset library view, so it doesn't really matter if what sizes things have, unless we are directly comparing sizes. Okay, let's just say that this, we don't spend too much time arranging things here. Something like this. Obviously in this case we have a background that is very random. We could obviously exit that. We could put in another type of floor. I'm just going to do this very roughly now and make it big enough so that it covers the whole view of the image, and also there towards the back. Now we have a white background. There's different settings we could do to increase the quality of these shadows, but for now we're going to leave it like this. And we can obviously change the direction of the directional light, as we have done before, to try and make something But for this kind of settings, if you want to have if you want to have the shadows, I'd recommend that you put in a few other kinds of lights, like maybe some directional lights or some rectangular lights. Push G so we can see it again. Oh, where did it go? This light seems to have been placed in some weird place, so I'm gonna put it back to 0, 0, 0. And I'm going to put it somewhere here, so I'm going to copy the location of that and paste it for this one, so I don't need to move it there manually. So for this I would put some of these lights, make them bigger and make them stronger and make them reach a longer distance. And I would put a few of these to maybe get more shadows or to soften them, and you can play around with this yourself. So obviously in the same way as before, we push G to get rid of those things. We can then now simply make a high resolution screenshot as we've done before. And look at that. And here we go. We have some kind of image here. But perhaps we don't want the shadows and we want a perfectly white background. We can do that by using this tool here called Use Custom Depth as Mask. If we click that, you'll see that all objects disappear. We have a green background apart from one object. And it's because I have in the detail panel here for this object, I search for Render Custom Depth Pass. If I unclick that, see that the object disappears. So we can render out images with transparent backgrounds with only certain objects showing if we go through and do this for all of the objects that we want to be visible. I can select several objects at the same time if I want. Now we can try it. And now we have all of these images with a plain background, with a transparent background. So if I capture now, it will save this PNG image without the background. And you may wonder, why do we need to do this? Why can't we just delete the floor or delete the background? And the reason for this is that because these objects are sitting on the ground, they get light illumination bouncing off the floor that creates a more realistic look, so they don't look like they're floating, which is why we would do this. And of course we could set up a camera like this. Actually, one thing that we didn't do now was to check the precise settings for this camera. I just thought it looked good. If you want to have a precise isometric camera, then you would go here and change the rotation settings to be 30 degrees for instance, or 45 degrees, and then move it into position so you can see what you want to see. Or you can do it manually until you think it looks good. And of course we could also use a camera like this. If I make a copy of this and call this elevation, we could of course make a similar kind of camera with parallel projections. If I change the rotation here to 0, 0, and we move this one down here and we rotate it to face our objects, we could do a similar effect by then arranging the objects like this instead and placing them however you want. You can see that we have a nice isometric or parallel projection straight elevation view, and we can then do in the high resolution screenshot, we can do the same thing, either export this without background. You can see that the ground is gone and we have our PNG without a background. Or if we want some kind of subtle shadows, we can of course add another plane. Maybe we want some other kind of background, but let's say we just want a plain white one with the shadows. We go back to this view, and then we have some kind of shadows. And we'll be looking into later on how to do things like make these shadows look more precise, etc. But for now, we leave it here. And I would suggest that when you do this, you would export both one with the background and one without, so that you have them later on. And again, remember to create new cameras when you change too much of the settings, so that you have the original ones, because now we've been messing around doing a bunch of different stuff, but we still have these cameras that we set up for our last in our last tutorial, of course. And here we still have the directional light that we had off in the previous video.